Back in 2018, me and my dad went to explore an abandoned manor house. When we got there, we climbed over the gate. To our right, there was nothing but fields. To our left was the back of a large manor house. Lights were on in almost every room. Cars were parked at the back. It was a very well-lit, clean, beautiful, and clearly lived-in home. We snuck past to find the abandoned manor, thinking it must have been up ahead, but we didn't find any other structure. We crept back the same way we came and back over the gate, out of luck. As we walked down the road a couple of seconds, we noticed the front of the abandoned manor we were looking for. We proceeded to explore the location. After exploring a clearly abandoned old derelict building, we then realized as we came out the back and down the lane that the same gate we jumped over previously blocked our path. What we saw earlier was in fact the same manor. There was nothing to the left or right of the abandoned manor, just fields on all sides. To this day, we know what we saw. We must have seen how the manor looked when it was lived in. When we went around the front, it was the present-day manor, old and abandoned. This happened all the way back in 2017. I was camping with my friend. He had a huge farmland surrounded by forests. We were outside in front of the farmhouse in a tent. He was asleep, but me, always having insomnia, I was wide awake. All of a sudden, I hear loud, slow footsteps coming from out of the forest, coming over to the direction of the tent. This terrified me because I didn't know what it was. A bear? A deer? A person? No clue. So I was waiting for the footsteps to stop outside the tent. I prepared myself for the absolute worst. The footsteps moved past the tent. After hearing those slow, loud, methodical footsteps come out from the woods and then go past us, curiosity started to eat away at me. When I was a kid, I was stupid. I unzipped the tent and quietly peeked my head out to see if I could see anything. I looked all around the tree line, the house, everywhere. I couldn't find the source of the footsteps. I was just about to put my head back inside when I spotted something that didn't make sense. Behind the farmhouse to the right is the actual farm. And next to this farm, a pole. I saw what looked like a 30-foot tall grayish-silver pole standing next to this farm. It was shiny, glistening in the moonlight. I studied this weird structure up and down, confused, because I knew damn well I would have noticed this 30-foot tall pole bizarrely placed inches away from the farm earlier when it was daytime. But I didn't. After looking at this strange object really hard, I realized that the pole had arms and legs. They looked like rods, perfectly straight, symmetrical in proportion with its size and stature. It looked so smooth and round. It looked like it was stretched out. I don't know how to explain it. I then realized that it was doing something. It was spinning in a circle. Ever so slowly. I was dumbfounded. I had no idea what I could possibly be looking at. All of a sudden, this thing, This 30-foot tall, shining, spinning, pole-like humanoid thing took an uncomfortably long step back into the woods, still spinning ever so slowly, still glistening and shining in the moonlight. I had no idea how to react. I was at a complete loss for words. I just kind of went back into the tent and laid on my back until the sun came up. I had no sleep at all. After that day, I never hung out with my friend at that farm again. I don't know what it was. Trick of the eye? A black stick man? Your guess is as good as mine. I met the devil in Florence. I was in Florence for a vacation with my parents and sister. We were walking along a sidewalk that ran beside a tall wall. It was evening, and the streetlights tinted the road in yellow. I was joking with my family. My parents were a bit ahead of me on the sidewalk. From the opposite direction, a young man approached us. He wore a gray hoodie with the zipper up. The hood was pulled over his head. His hands were buried in his front pockets. He walked briskly, his head down, ignoring us. As he passed by me, I peeked under the shadow of his hood. I couldn't have seen him for more than a second or two. The sensation I felt stretches the memory and has scarred me to this very day. I was struck by the deepest panic I've ever experienced. His face gave me goosebumps. I can't describe him as anything other than a man who evolved from rats instead of apes. He was completely covered in tawny, glossy fur, like that of beavers, with a long, downward bent nose ending in a rat's snout without whiskers. His tiny eyes were like marbles, black. I've never managed to find anything online that resembled what I saw. I waited for him to walk away before telling my family what I had seen. I have no way to prove that what I saw really existed. All I have to show for my experience are the goosebumps in my arms and the hair standing up on the back of my neck. That man carried with him the most overwhelming terror I have ever felt. This happened in February 2020. I live in the central Arkansas area. My buddy's grandparents owned some farmland about 20 minutes outside of our town. We would regularly spend the night out there on weekends with some of our other friends. This particular weekend was just him and I. It was pretty dark by the time we got there, but it was the standard fare. We decided to set up a fire on the dirt path that ran from my friend's grandparents' house through their field to the woods. We built the fire closer to the middle of the field. Not long after we got the fire started, we sat down and got some music going. We cracked open our first beers. He turned off the music and noticed something in the sky behind me. I turned to look. There was a bright light in the sky above the tree line. I wasn't too weirded out by this, and neither was he. I had never seen a star that bright before. I opened up this Stargazer app on my phone, thinking that we were close to a planet, but before I could even point my phone in that direction, the star moved. The light moved quickly and smoothly to the right, without any bobs or waves. It was utterly silent. I noticed that the light was coming from some kind of flying vehicle, and it was much closer than we thought. The thing was also fast. Too fast to move that quietly without making some sort of noise. It was dark. I couldn't make out what exactly the vehicle was. The bright light emitting from its side obscured any good look. It moved perfectly parallel with the tree line, just above it. It moved when it noticed we noticed it. We continued watching the UFO just quickly and quietly move on in a straight line until it was beyond our sight. Me and my friend just kind of looked at each other like, what? We began to discuss what we just saw. 20 minutes later, we heard a noise coming from the sky. We saw two loud-ass planes flying side by side, going into the direction where the UFO had gone. We started to think that it was a military drone of some kind. I still think about it every now and then.